Hello everyone and welcome again to another lesson 13 of CSS playlist. In this particular lesson we are going to look at the CSS table styling. In our previous lesson we have already looked at the CSS links. Now let's look at how to apply some styles to the tables. So we're going to look at these concepts. We're going to look on how to apply table borders. We're also going to look on how to apply table padding, and we're going to look on how to apply different sizes to the table, and we're going to look at the concept of text alignment within the table, and we will look at the concept of horizontal dividers, and then we will also look at the concept of how to apply hoverable rows to the table, and also how to have stripped table rows. So with that said, let's get started and do the practical. So with that, I'm going to turn over to my Visual Studio Code, and here you're going to see that this is our previous code, and in this student page I'm going to open it right here. I'm going to create a table within this student page, and I'm going to keep some student records within that table. So allow me to remove these styles for now. And now within the body, just below this header frame, I'm going to add one header, and I'm going to say student records, and then below this header I'm going to add just one table with at most 3 rows. So how do we add a table? We use the table tag, and then we are going to insert the table row, and the first row is going to carry the table headers, which represents the column names. So I'm going to say name, and then the next column I'm going to say admission number, and then the next column I'm going to have age, and then the very last column I'm going to have status, whether active, enrolled, or what. Then after the headers I'm going to insert now the actual rows where I enter the data. So I'm going to insert another row here, and then below this row I'm now going to use table data, and I'm going to insert the data for the first student. Maybe Peter is the name, and then I'm going to have maybe admission number is 2345, and then going to have age using another table data, and then the age maybe is 23, and then lastly we're going to have table data again, and the status we say maybe active. So now I'm going to copy this row and insert 2 other rows of such kind, but just change the values. Now I'm going to change this value to Simon, then I can as well change this one to John, and let me just leave that since we're just demonstrating. All of them have the same age and the same admission number, no problem about that. And now when I save these changes and open this page in the browser, you're going to see that a basic table has been added. So let me open this page with a live server. Right click and then open with a live server, and right here you're going to see that below this video we have this page which has been added with these records, and now we want to add some styles to this table so that we can have the best of our table. So to be able to do that, the first thing we are going to look at is how to add table border. So the first style of the table will be looking at the table border. So the table border will apply the border between the rows and the lines. So I'm going to add the styles. So I'm going to add the style within the head section, and I'm going to use the style tag. And within the style tag I'm going to say on this page I want to style my table, and I also want to style my table heading and then my table data. So here I'm selecting table, table head, and table data elements, and then I'm going to apply the style border, and the border is going to be 1 pixel white, and it's going to be solid, and it is going to be of color black. And now let me save, and now we're going to see that now we have our table with these basic lines. But now when you look at these lines, there are we have double lines between the cells, and what we want to do is to collapse this into a single line. And how do we do that? We apply the CSS style border collapse. So we're going to use this again, style, and below here we're going to add another style called border collapse, and then we're going to give it the value collapse, and then we save the changes. And now when you go back to your browser, you're going to see now the lines have been collapsed and we have only a single line between the table cells. The next style that you can apply to your table to make it even more amazing is the table size. So right now you can see the table is, by default, it expands depending on the number of rows on the number of columns that you have. But now if you style, you can increase the width of the table to come up to here or to occupy the full width. So let's see how we can do that. Back to our Visual Studio, within our CSS, I'm going to say the table. I'm selecting the table tag and I'm going to apply the width, and I'm going to say the width now is 500 pixels. And now when you go back to your browser, you're going to see that the table width has increased. But now instead even of using fixed width pixels, you can use percentages. Alright, so I can go back, and instead of using 500 pixels, I can use percentage. I say this table should occupy 50% of the page. And now when I save and go back to the browser, you're going to see that the table takes up 50% of this page. If you put the value 100%, then the table is going to take the full width of the page. You can as well adjust the height as well. So let's say 50%, and the height also. So let's put the height as 400 pixels. And now let me save. And now when you go to, you're going to see that the table increases in height as well. Now the next property you're going to apply to the table is the padding. So you can see within the table cells, this data is too close to the left of this line here. So we want to make sure we apply some space between this line and the text. So the CSS style that we can use is the table padding. So we can say for table data and for table heading, apply the padding. So here I'm going to select yet another table heading and table data, and I'm going to apply padding. I can give it padding of 16 pixels on all sides. So padding, this is a shorthand. It will apply padding both on right, left, top and bottom. So now when you come back to your browser, you're going to see now the text has some space between the text and the border lines. Alright, the next CSS property you can apply to this is, let's look at the next property we can apply is the text alignment. So we can as well align text to the center, or we can align text to the bottom or to the top within the cells. So when you come here in your browser, you're going to see that this text is aligned to the left. So we can change this alignment by using the CSS text align, and we're going to apply that to table header and the table data. So I'm going to add another CSS style here called text align. Then I'm going to say center. So you're going to see now the text is aligned at the center. If you change the value from center to right, you're going to see that the text gets aligned to the right. Most likely you will want to use center in most of the cases, unless you have a specific style you want to achieve. The next style that you can apply is the CSS vertical alignment. So we can as well apply the property vertical alignment, and we can align the text to the bottom. Okay, so you can see the text is aligned at the bottom here. And if you change the alignment, let me say top now, vertically, you can see now the text aligns itself at the top. So with the text aligned, you can align the text horizontally. You can change the horizontal alignment of the text. With the vertical alignment, you can be able to change the vertical alignment of the text within the cells. The next CSS property you can use is to achieve horizontal lines that divides the table. So here I can go back and say, for the table data and the table heading, I want to apply, or I can rather say, yeah, for the table data and the table heading, I want to apply border of 1 pixels, and it is of color solid. Sorry about that, solid. And then it's of color black. And now let me remove this border right here and save. And let me also remove this other one here. And you're going to see that you have some border applied at the bottom here. So let me return it back to where it was. And now you have back your table again in this format. The next CSS style that you might want to apply to your table is having horizontal line or row hoverable, so that when you pass your mouse over each row, the row can be highlighted in some text. So I'm going to apply this style. So I'm going to say, for the table row, when the table row is hovered using a mouse, table row dot hover, apply the background color to green. And now when I save these changes, then I come back to my table. When I move my mouse over each table, the row is highlighted with a background color of green. Alright. The next and the last style that we want to look in CSS table styling is how to have stripped table rows that have got some stripped colors. So to achieve that, we are going to use the table row selector, and then we are going to select the element on even number, and then we are going to apply the style. So here again, I'm going to say, for table row at position, end position, child, and here I'm going to say, if it is even number, apply the style background color. So let me give it a background color of let me put this value, hexadecimal value. Now when I save the changes, then I go back to I'm going to see that we have some stripped table rows right here, which has got some background color. So you can change this color to maybe something like 20. May F again, or we can give it the background color. Let me give it background color of red so that it can be more visible. Now you have a stripped color table. Alright, so that's some of the styles that you can apply. When you come back to here, you're going to see that we are selecting the table row, and we are selecting the table row, each row which is at position even number, and if the row falls on the even number position, then we apply the background color to background red. So when you come to a table here, this is the first row, this is the second row, row 2, so 2 is an even number, it will apply. Row 3, 3 is not an even number. Row 4, 4 is an even number, and therefore we're going to apply that. So that's how you select and apply the background color. You can as well change from here to saying odd, and now when you save, you're going to see all the odd number rows will be applied with this background color of red. So that's all about how to style CSS tables, and in the next lesson we will get to look at the concept of CSS display property. Otherwise, I want to pause this video here and see you in the next video. Otherwise, thank you for joining the class.